So good afternoon, everyone out there in internet land. Today's a really sunny, rainy, kind of strange day here in Binghamton, New York, but I can't complain. You know, Parchelle, I just complain all the time about the weather here in Binghamton, but it isn't that bad.
No, that's good to know.
Yeah, it's a little chilly, but honestly, I can't complain today because I've had a really, really good day, everybody. And the best part of the day is going to be this conversation with Parchelle. If you ever thought, by the way, have you ever thought of taking the content that you have and turning it into a course? I know a lot of you have, but what about this? What if you write a book and you turn the content in your book into a course? How awesome would that be? Well, this is Yvonne DeVita from Smart Conversations, and my guest today, Parchelle Tashi, is going to help us understand how to do that and even why we should do it. Parchelle, welcome to the show.
Hey, glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Let me tell everybody a little bit about you. It's very, very fascinating. Parchelle Tashi is an award-winning creative entrepreneur, popular podcast host, and creator of The Author's Leverage. A former high school math teacher turned tech-preneur, she's an education design architect and video producer with a master's in curriculum and instruction from Virginia Tech. Parchelle lives and works in San Diego, where she spends her time brainstorming ways to help other creatives get more bang for their books. Got it? More bang for their books. She and her team specialize in creating high-end, memorable, impactful online courses for authors and creators who want to establish automated and residual revenue streams. Her combined expertise in production, education, and business growth come together to help authors create online courses based on their best-selling book, saving them time and creating a revenue stream in their business. She's a teacher at heart, and her personal mission is to create noteworthy learning experiences that inspire action and change. I really love that part, inspiring action and change. But when we first met, Parchelle, and we talked earlier this week, or maybe it was last week, I became fascinated by this new thing that you're doing, which is new but not new. I think that you have some creative ways of doing it, helping authors especially take their books and create courses from them, which is what I tell all my authors they should do. How did you kind of get started? What gave you the idea to do this?
Yeah, this is really interesting. So when the pandemic hit, is when this sort of opportunity came about. So let me back up a little bit. Prior to that, I had owned a video production company on the East Coast, and I've been doing that for a little over 10 years at that point. And prior to that, I was a school teacher, as you had mentioned. So I felt I was at this place of just trying to figure out what was next. And usually for me, that I just go and pick up the camera and see where it leads me. And there were some opportunities that came about from, this is funny, but filming puppets, because I gave a shot at that too, which was very cool. The concept was called the Puppetpreneurs, and there were puppets that were entrepreneurs. Anyway, so from there, that didn't work out. And so I just kept looking, and an opportunity came for an author who had a book, and she asked to, help creating a video course for it. And so this was a concept that I hadn't heard of, but I was really open to it. And we decided to take it on as a project, and everything in me lit up on this shoot, I have to tell you. And so I guess it's a personal thing, but usually when those things hit home, they also mean something for impact for other people. And so I really felt that very strong, because the content that we were filming, it was like, wow, finally I'm behind the camera producing something that I believe in, that I know is going to help people if they were to hear this. And that it was, it was meaningful and it looked great. You know what I mean? Like it was at that point, the best of the production quality I've produced at that time. So it was all the elements were together for what for me felt like a really good sweet spot. And we decided to dig our heels in it and continue to go forth. So that's how I got into it. It was just an opportunity that came up, and I said, I want to do this again.
Well, that's interesting because a lot of solopreneurs and entrepreneurs start that way. They see a gap or something missing in the marketplace and they go after it. I mean, that's kind of how I started in books and helping people with books. Well, because I do that, because I'm a book coach, I find this extremely important and fascinating because I tell my authors that they should be creating workshops, webinars, those kinds of things. And I don't do that. That's not where I come from. So having met you, talk to me a little bit about the experience you've had doing this with authors.
Yeah, the experience has definitely been amazing. The way that we've approached it is really from, I guess you can say, how Tesla as a company was built,
Mm,
starting with the very most well laid out model as possible. And we've designed that process with the intent that the author is going to show up and teach. That's all we need them to do. Literally everything else about the process can be handled by us. So that's essentially how our process is designed, and that includes even their authors coming to us here in San Diego to film with us over a day or two or three. It depends on what kind of content we're looking at and how we can approach it. But essentially, in 1 to 2 days, all of the course content is produced. It's produced at a very high premium level, and then we're able to help them finish it out and actually publish it. So those are the aspects that go into our process. And, the experience has been really, I think, more heartfelt at the end of the day when it comes to working with our clients, because we're spending time together. And me as a student at heart and a teacher at heart, I'm just learning. And I have to tell you, I'm like, I'm learning some amazing things right now that I didn't. So I'm like on fire with the information that I'm taking in, and then I'm able to, essentially change it over, reformat it in a way that I would teach it as the way that I understood it, and
mhm.
really create a virtual and digital experience from it.
Yeah, and then the authors, of course, go out and they sell this, and this is part of what I tell people: book as business card, or when you write your book, it's a tool in your toolbox. It's
Mm,
not you're not going to get rich off of the book. So,
yeah.
are you working mostly with business professionals?
Yeah, they're most are business professionals, but then also we have some that are consultants. They're also coaches, life coaches, things of that
Mhm.
nature. Really, anyone who has made an impact through their book and wanting to, you know, reformat it in a way that's going to inspire action is really what this is about. So yeah, we've definitely had a lot of fun doing that for sure.
Well, I was thinking about a client I have who's a fiction author.
Mhm.
However, his book is not just to entertain. There's a message in his book. And
Right.
so we're creating a reader's guide at the back of the book.
Mm,
And I got to thinking that his book and the reader's guide and the concept of what he's trying to achieve and the message he's trying to share could lend itself to what you're doing,
mhm.
because he could literally work with you and help turn this book into a course that people could take that was based on his book of fiction.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There's lessons in everything. And you can incorporate the book in so many ways, which is really fun about this. We're actually designing a learning experience. That's the key thing. It just happens to be a course, but it really is an experience. So those elements from the book really help us to create that path. And again, even with fiction work, you're able to do that. If there's an action step that people can take, or something they can do using the fiction as a guide through that, there's a lot of possibilities on the aspect of workshops and a
Yeah,
number of other iterations that can turn into.
I could see this being very big because I read a lot of fiction. I also read nonfiction, but I do read a lot of fiction. And more now, authors are putting in a reader's guide at the back of the book. And the reader's guide references individual chapters and what happened and what book club members might want to talk about from
Mhm.
the book. But I also think that it is this opportunity for a fiction author then to become a speaker, and from there, maybe to have a webinar about what you were just saying. So Are you talking mostly video? Is there, so the author is on camera teaching? How does that work?
Yeah, so our North Star in this in our process and getting started was being inspired by masterclass.com. And
Oh,
so when we saw that particular learning style, I knew that there was something to that because of just the mere quality and how it was done.
yeah.
So as a video production professional, hey, this is a growth, this is how can I show up as my highest and with the very highest team behind me. So that's I would say a differentiator in how we're showing up, because there are a number of course creators and people that can help establish courses. I mean, heck, you can film it yourself on Zoom. We could be filming a course right now.
Right, right.
There's a very wide spectrum, and depending on where you're at in the stage of your business, what kind of impact you want this product to make, so forth and
Mhm.
so on, your video quality is going to matter. And even if that's just slides in your voice, that's going to matter, the quality of that experience. So those things considered, that's sort of a big point for us as well when it comes to being in person, being on camera. And a lot of times too, it's very cool to say, to think about the sensory experience when someone's learning. So when you're reading a book, right, you're using your sight
Mhm.
and your hand, and your physical touch. So those are being engaged. But then when you turn on and add on another element to it, and then it's the actual author talking to you to say, this is what this is going to be important to take these next steps. So
Yeah.
it created this exercise to help you guide through that. Like that's going to further inspire that reader to be involved and to learn. And the biggest way we approach our courses is really it's very action guided. It's about getting your learner into action, because that's how we learn. There's an extremely huge, what I guess knowledge and do gap or whatever between the two, the amount of things that we know versus what you know by doing and how much you've
Mhm.
actually executed. So that's a really big area that we want to address in our work as well, is that it's constructed with the best design possible to get results for the reader.
That's really important, I think, what you just said, because people learn in different ways. But we have always said, we know, my husband and I, because we study it, that if you read it, you write it down, and you hear it, you learn it better. So
Mm-hmm.
having something you can also see, that's also involved, because as you know, as a teacher, the classroom is looking at you while you're teaching them. So they're hearing you, they're seeing you, and then they're taking notes. And
Yeah.
that's how the brain really says, this must be important, I should actually pay attention to it. So
Yeah.
that's powerful to have excuse me, to have the author there speaking these parts of the book. So when you create courses from books, do you read the book first?
Yes. Yeah,
Ah,
we read, we analyze the book, we're looking at how it's constructed. A lot of those elements contribute to how you can start to see it as a learning experience. What are the major steps? What are the major milestones? What's constituted as success? What would be that big win for the reader? Those things we're trying to pick apart from the book first. And then we also collect information from the author as well, and then essentially analyze those together in our design and strategy section, that portion of our experience.
right. So the author doesn't just show up and you start filming. You actually have a
Oh
strategy
no.
session with them.
Yeah. Yeah, we actually have a session with them to plan out, and design that curriculum. And then once that's ready to go, we're off to now we're in production.
Right. So when we talk production, and this is what's fascinating to me, um, I've learned in the last few weeks that the quality of a Zoom production isn't quite as good as the kind of quality probably you have in your studio. So I'm rather spoiled by Zoom, but what how do I say this? The fact that an author has a book and now wants to turn it into a course, right? Focusing on that quality. I mean, to me, that seems like such a major, important part of developing this curriculum, because if you're a professional, this is your book, now you're turning it into some course material, that quality is really, really important. And do you find that people are pretty amazed or really like, I mean, I can imagine if you did something for me, I'd be like, wow, I did not know what I was missing.
Yeah, we definitely have that sort of effect usually from when our author comes on site with us. So when they show up here in San Diego to film with us and they walk in and see the set and they see how things are set up, it's like, whoa, that's when they're initially blown away. And then from there, they're really involved in the shoot. We're like a big family for the day. But we're able to actually show them like this is how it's looking so far. We get feedback. We're collaborating with them on set to make sure they're happy with the look as well. And that's when they see that and they're like, oh my gosh, okay, now I'm ready to do this, and they get really excited. So it's such a good experience, and the quality of it matters. And I think also too, the quality of the delivery. One of the things that I'll say is that whenever you have to get up and teach something, I know that most of us are good just to do it by ourselves, but there's something about having other people around to collaborate in that experience, who are there for you, that are going to listen out for, hey, could you say that again? It's literally, we're part of the experience as well. So that impacts the delivery of the content to camera as well.
I didn't
So
think
all
of
those things
that.
are, yeah, it really to be in person and to get that quality really shows up in a lot of different factors. Essentially it's just the comfort and the, confidence in knowing you're not doing this by yourself.
Yeah, and the comfort and confidence, right? Exactly. But so when the author is there, you've already had the book and you've already gone through the book before the author shows up, correct? Okay, so now you put together the course curriculum, and then does the author host it on their website, or do you have a place to host it, or do you turn it over to them and then they take it off?
Yeah, right now, we essentially, as a solution to them, we provide the course to them on their platform of choice. Typically, we have our preferred platforms in terms of a learning management system, but typically we want for that software to be able to, of course, house the content, to be able to handle all the logins for people, all the tech backend, as well as sending out emails or certain interactions within those that are part of the course, as well as checkout, right? How payment happens, who gets paid when someone gets paid. That end of the setup is also something that we're helping them to complete, and that's part of our publishing and sort of launching process.
Oh, so wow, you're really from soup to nuts, so they say.
Yeah. Yeah, we feel like that's the complete, experience, if you will. So that way there really is nothing left undone, in that extent, to where from the design of the curriculum and how we've outlined the information to showing up on film day with us, right? And then to us taking the content and making sure that, everything is smooth and efficient on that end. And we're handing over a link, essentially, right? Here's a link, your .com, where if you're on stage, if you're on a podcast, if you're here, if you're there, if you're continuing to do the things that you do as an author to be in front of people and to keep the conversation going, this will be part of that journey that people can take. So at that point now you just have a product, that was made with quality and is in place for you to utilize when you need.
Right. I mean, that product is that reoccurring income that it works for you even when you're sleeping. It's one of those things that, especially with business books, it's what the business book author wants is something that's going to help bring in money when I'm on vacation, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly.
So do you have any programs that are bringing in residual income for you while you're on vacation?
Not for myself just yet. That's one of the things that is in the works for us. Like I said, starting with the Tesla version, we're wanting to build out this experience, really have it run its course in terms of us seeing what works and what doesn't work. And once that's signed off, I would then like to share that and find other ways to bring people through that experience themselves to where they can still get that quality end result from all the steps we just talked about.
So I mean, I can tell just when you talk about it that this is something that you're very happy to be doing. When you were a teacher, what did you teach?
I taught math.
You taught math. Okay, Yvonne's like cringing because numbers don't get, I don't get along with numbers. My family makes fun of me so much. You have no idea how I mess up numbers, and they'll be like, don't give her that, like the check at a restaurant. Don't give her that. She can't even read it. But so what kind of, math, what grade level?
Oh, this was high school level math. So ranging from algebra, geometry. I was certified to teach all the way up to calculus, but as a younger teacher, you got the younger kids or grades, So I mostly taught geometry when I taught high school.
So I'm sorry, I will admit it here on camera. I flunked geometry twice.
It's okay.
And
you just needed the right teacher. That's all.
Yes, and that's exactly what I look back now, and I did not realize that in today's world, I probably could have had a tutor or something and got my way through it, but I had no one at home to help me, and it was all so confusing to me, and really, and I don't know if you've ever experienced this with any students, but I went into the class knowing I was going to fail, so I failed.
Yeah, it's unfortunately that's like what I find to be the biggest challenge with most students in my experience was that they just were lacking the will, like the actual belief in themselves that they could do it. So I did my best at the beginning of the year to try to talk about that a little bit when it came to believing in themselves in the process. And in one case, I had one student who he was actually my cousin's son. So my cousin's whatever. He was struggling in math really, really bad. And so his mom had me go and tutor him. And I tutored him that one time, and I really just addressed, I was like, man, all I did most of the time was I just praised him. I just kept like, man, like, wow, you're doing stuff that even my kids can't. Like, I just started like really encouraging him. That was the only session I had with him. And he ended up passing that class with a B.
Oh, nice.
And when we were doing stuff, I was like, I don't know how well he knows this stuff right now, but I didn't focus on that. I just used the opportunity just to do that. And he ended up with a B, and definitely, and I'm not trying to say it was just me, but that's when, because he didn't come back, like I only tutored him that once. And from there, his grades just started improving.
Well, that sounds wonderful. Absolutely marvelous. So if we think about your young life, because you're still pretty young, and I'm older than dirt, tell people that all the time. No. But who do you count as role models that have inspired you to become what you've become?
Wow. I definitely think about my parents. Because, well, my mom, she was a math teacher. She's retired now. So, a lot of watching her and observing how she taught, and just how she just always was really structured about everything. So I observed that about how she would teach. And funny story, we both taught at the same school for about a couple of years.
Oh, no. Wow.
Yeah, so that was funny. And then my dad, he's a creative musician, and he's also an engineer. So he's also retired, but he still plays music. And their example for me was huge, in just seeing that work ethic from them, and just being parents and being in that place in our lives. From there, the other inspirations for me have been Oprah. Oprah is someone that always stood out to me when it came to media, when it came to being a leader, and being someone who also taught and focused on what she wanted and what she felt was important for the planet, and really was just driven by a lot of her intuition and from her heart, what she's produced. And so when I look at that, she's one of my biggest role models for sure. Along the way, I've had a number of people who've like helped me and support me. I'm like nowhere that I am right now without them. Even the producer who brought me under his wing while I was still teaching. I took 6 days in summers to learn how to produce under him in Philly. And so he was a huge influence for me in just seeing how how you could produce on a larger scale. So that was really interesting. And, just a lot of those people were definitely role models in my life that, supported me. I can make a whole list. There's so many people, but yeah, but for sure, those are the big ones.
Well, that's really encouraging to hear. I can say Oprah's a role model for a lot of people. And I think it's, not just because she was so smart about how she did things. She just, I don't know if she had a sixth sense or what, but she was so good at her show and how but she also was so approachable. She was also always trying to help other people. And that's that's a key part of what I think we're all about here on the planet, is as long as we can help each other succeed and do everything we can to make
Yeah,
the other person be a success.
100%. Yeah.
Right?
And I love too how she lives from within, if
Yeah.
that makes sense. She lives from that place, she drives from that place, she leads from that place,
Yep.
in a lot of respects. And that's a huge inspiration for me.
Well, she inspires me because she didn't have a great childhood, neither did I.
Right.
And
Right.
so I look at her and I think, yeah, look
Mhm.
at it also, I don't know, every time you see Oprah, she's really rooting for somebody.
Mhm.
Rooting, she just did, I don't know if you saw, she just announced her latest book club choice. And it's this wonderful young 17-year-old girl
Mhm.
who got her book published. And it was just phenomenal. Now, I don't know how Oprah found her or whatever, but you look at this young 17-year-old girl and what she's accomplished.
Mhm.
And that kind of thing really lifts me because it's a book, of course,
Yeah. Yeah.
but also because when Oprah speaks, people listen, and it's good because she doesn't speak unless she has something worth saying.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. So
Exactly.
where can we find you, and what would you like to leave the viewers with? What is coming up that they might want to know about, or how can they find you?
Yeah, definitely check out the authorsleverage.com. That's the main spot for us, and you'll be able to get connected to a number of things. I'm not sure when this is going to release, but we are going to have in motion a should I turn my book into a course quiz? Not sure what we're calling it yet, but essentially it's a quick quiz that you can take that will help you really determine answer that question. In other words, we get that question a lot, and we develop the quiz that's going to help give you that answer and point you in a certain direction based on what you score. So you can check that out at theauthorsleverage.com. And we're also going to, be having other elements there. You can get in touch with us, and our masterclass is also coming up in a few months, so you'll be able to see that. We only do that quarterly, so definitely be sure to just check out the .com, and you'll be able to see what we've got going on and connect with us on social media. I'm on LinkedIn, and you can pretty much find us on most of the platforms as well.
All right, I will be sharing all of that information, by the way, in the blog post and on YouTube, everyone, so that you can find Parchelle. Parchelle, this has really been phenomenal because there's such an opportunity for authors, but I think you're also providing an opportunity for the people who need to have the education, who need to take the workshops, who need to learn what they can learn from these people that have written these books. And that is a really phenomenal way to help people be successful.
Absolutely. It's a win-win. It's a
All the way
win-win.
around.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a
Yeah.
win-win. Well, thank you so much for being on the show, and I will make sure I share everything about Parchelle. And I'm definitely going to be recommending you to anyone. Well, I mean, I'm sitting here thinking, if you're halfway done with your book, you
Mhm.
should start thinking about this.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's even when you connect with the author's leverage and start considering, how would I make this happen? So even before the book is launched, folks, you can start thinking about creating courses.
It's actually the best time.
Excellent. Well, Parchelle, thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good one.